Signs of hope. The Vice President and Surgeon General are among those who received the vaccine for the coronavirus. We have a report. Plus, new developments in the race to find another vaccine. Push to reopen. The Supreme Court weighs in on a case involving religious schools in Kentucky. And Vatican in the spotlight, why we may see Pope Francis on a series produced by Netflix. On EWTN News Nightly for Friday, December 18th, 2020. Good evening, and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Tracy Sable. Truly inspiring. That is how Vice President Mike Pence is describing today. He also said after receiving the coronavirus vaccine this morning that in this season of hope, hope is on the way. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports. Owen?
Tracy, good evening to you. With the cameras rolling, Vice President Mike Pence got vaccinated today against the coronavirus, not just to protect himself, obviously, but to convince Americans it's safe and to put to rest any doubt.
At the White House and on live TV, Vice President Mike Pence rolls up his sleeve to receive his coronavirus vaccination. Also getting their vaccinations, Second Lady Karen Pence and Surgeon General Dr. Jerome Adams. The goal, build confidence that the shots, as the sign says, are safe and effective.
Karen and I wanted to step forward and take this vaccine to assure the American people that while we cut red tape, we cut no corners. The American people can be confident.
As I've discussed with faith leaders as recently as last night, the creation of these vaccines is a gift from above.
And if there are skeptics,
the speed was a reflection of extraordinary scientific advances and did not compromise safety, nor did it compromise scientific integrity.
Also expressing confidence in the vaccines, President Donald Trump tweeted, Moderna vaccine overwhelmingly approved. Distribution to start immediately. And President-elect Joe Biden, who this morning went to Mass on the 48th anniversary of the deaths of his first wife and baby daughter, also plans to be vaccinated in public. Meanwhile, the worst ever hack of U.S. government agencies. It's widely suspected Russia did it.
We're in the middle of winter. What if this attack was on the gas pipeline system or on the electrical grid or on the air traffic control system? This just underlines how critically important the issue of cyber is and how we really aren't there yet in terms of preparation.
Also tonight, 1 week before Christmas, President Donald Trump also tweeted today, thanks to FedEx and UPS for delivering millions of vaccines across the country in those recent storms, calling them two great American companies. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
And join me now on Skype to talk more about that apparent cyber attack on U.S. government agencies is Congressman Mike Gallagher, Republican from Wisconsin, member of the House Armed Services Committee, as well as co-chair of the Cyberspace Solarium Commission. Congressman, welcome back to the show. Thank you so much for your time today. So what do we know at this point about the extent or scope of this intrusion? And also, what kind of information may have been compromised?
Well, it looks like this is the hack of the decade. It's one of the biggest espionage campaigns in history. For example, 2/3 of the Department of the Energy's plants, sites, and offices use SolarWinds software to monitor networks. And while there's currently no indication that any data was destroyed or exfiltrated at this time, the fact that they gained access to these networks means they can effectively control these networks, altering or manipulating data as they see fit. Open source reporting suggests that this links back to the Russians. I have not had that confirmed by any government source, but certainly it's in line with what we've seen from the SVR in the past. And so as we take a step back, I think this needs to be a warning. This needs to be a wake-up call. The system is blinking red right now. It is September 10th in cyberspace, and if we don't get our act together, we're going to wake up to a cyber 9/11.
Yeah. Any idea how long this has been going on? And do we know exactly how the cyber attack happened, how they were able to do it?
Well, a report suggests that it's been going on potentially since March. And I think it's important to note that it was FireEye, a private company, not the U.S. government, that initially detected the intrusion which was effectuated through software updates to this SolarWinds software that is used widely, not only within the federal government, but in many of our biggest and best companies here in America. And so the fact that we did not detect it from the federal government suggests we don't do a good enough job of patrolling our networks, which is why it's imperative that we pass the National Defense Authorization Act, because there's over 26 recommendations in the NDAA related to cyber. This will be the most significant piece of cyber legislation in history. And one of those pieces of legislation gives CISA, the organization at DHS that does cyber work, that's charged with protecting our critical infrastructure, the authority to do threat hunting on .gov networks, to proactively probe our defenses, probe where we are weak, and theoretically spot intrusions like this very quickly so we can address them and remediate the problem before foreign adversaries are able to break out on our networks.
What kind of response from the U.S. would you like to see? I know some have said, in particular, Senator Dick Durbin, that the hack on a number of government agencies is virtually a declaration of war. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think Senator Durbin went way too far and got carried away with his rhetoric. This was an espionage campaign, a massive one. I'll give you that, one that is troubling, but it is not an act of war. So we should consider a calibrated response, one that starts with publicly naming and shaming Russia, if indeed they are the ones who are responsible, continues by working with our allies in order to make it clear to the Russians that if they use that network access or that data to disrupt or have kinetic effects in the real world, that we will respond very strongly, that would be a red line if they were to cross that, and they will be met with an overwhelming response. And we may not be limited to cyber weapons when we consider that response.
Well, Congressman, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
While the U.S. stands on the verge of adding a second vaccine to its arsenal, the Food and Drug Administration is evaluating a shot developed by Moderna and the National Institutes of Health. A final decision could clear the way for its use as early as Monday. Correspondent Mark Irons reports. Mark?
Tracy, we're days away from Christmas now, and another vaccine in circulation could be a gift for many. Coronavirus deaths per day are hitting all-time highs here in the U.S., and the pandemic continues to impact people of faith in more ways than one.
The pandemic has claimed more than 310,000 U.S. lives. New cases are running at over 216,000 per day on average. And deaths per day at all-time highs, including 3,600 on Wednesday.
If we could prevent COVID in nursing homes, we know we can lower the death rate dramatically, and we can also lower the hospitalization rate dramatically.
The virus hit one group of Catholics particularly hard. 8 nuns living at a retirement home for sisters in suburban Milwaukee died of COVID-19 complications in the last week, including 4 who passed away on the same day.
So it was just very difficult for us, and we just kept getting those announcements. These are our family. We are a community and we know each other well.
Meanwhile, COVID restrictions have impacted Catholics in another way. In the nation's capital, the D.C. mayor issued an order allowing only 50 people inside churches. After the Archdiocese of Washington sued, the mayor reversed course and now says up to 250 people can worship. Now in a statement, the Archdiocese says, "We are grateful that the new order will allow us to welcome more of the faithful to church during the Christmas season and beyond." Prior to the legal fight, Cardinal Wilton Gregory told EWTN News Nightly of plans to safely accommodate the faithful.
And I hope that we would be able to accommodate as many people as we can. Obviously, the coronavirus and its limitation will make it a different experience of Christmas.
And as we wait for the Moderna vaccine approval, one doctor from the University of Michigan put it this way, saying he hopes 2 vaccines, Pfizer and Moderna, will break the back of the pandemic when combined with masks and other precautions. In the studio, Mark Irons, EWTN News Nightly.
Well, congressional aides pulled an all-nighter trying to get legislation together for COVID relief. Leadership on both sides say the major issues have been decided, but it is not done yet. All this with a threat of a government shutdown hanging over their heads. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales joins us now with the latest. Eric.
Well, that's right, Tracy. Congressional leaders had set aside today as the deadline for the $900 billion new coronavirus relief package. They were going to tie it together with the $1.4 trillion spending bill. That was going to prevent a government shutdown at midnight tonight. But now it appears that that deadline is going to pass with no deal.
With no quick resolution in sight, lawmakers are gearing up to work through the weekend. Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says he's optimistic a COVID relief deal will happen soon, but...
Let's face it, though, Mr. President, it doesn't help struggling Americans keep their jobs or endure unemployment or pay their rent or get vaccines any faster to keep hearing that we're having good discussions.
We have a responsibility to get this right. People's lives depend upon it.
Meanwhile, the virus continues to force unemployment numbers to rise. 885,000 Americans filed for unemployment for the first time last week.
We're still down 10 million jobs from where we were in February pre-pandemic. And half of those jobs are people who say that they have permanently lost their. That's a lot of pain and financial pain and suffering.
To help working families, Senator Josh Hawley introduced a standalone bill today on the Senate floor. It would provide direct relief to Americans in a one-time payment of $1,200 to individuals, $2,400 to couples filing jointly, and $500 per child.
And as these negotiations drag on, fixated and focused and hung up on who knows what issues, let's start with this. Let's send a message to working families that they're first, not last.
But the measure was blocked. The $900 billion COVID relief package under discussion could include an extension of enhanced unemployment benefits, money for small businesses, and another round of direct payments to Americans. But some Republicans say the bill's price tag is too high, and progressive Democrats want larger stimulus checks. Still, they say they're getting closer.
I can guarantee that we'll get a deal done. I can't guarantee how soon that's going to be.
And one thing's for sure, even a short government shutdown would actually raise tensions between the two parties, and they still have to come up with coronavirus relief. On a side note, Kevin McCarthy, leader of the minority leader of the House, he actually just had a briefing with the FBI dealing with Representative Swalwell over the China incident and the China spy. He came out of that meeting saying that there is no way that Representative Swalwell should remain on the Intel Committee. At the Capitol, Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
Well, the Supreme Court rejects a Kentucky Christian school's request to reopen in-person instruction, citing timing since the ruling in question will expire after the Christmas holiday break. The High Court rejected the petition from Danville Christian Academy, but it leaves open the chance for the school to appeal if the governor of Kentucky issues another order to close schools beyond January 4th. Coming up, how a pro-life advocate is fighting back against efforts to expand abortion in Africa. A new film is shining a light on attempts to extend and expand the agenda of the international abortion movement to countries in the developing world. Africa's Pandemic, a gateway to neocolonialism, explores how, amid the COVID-19 pandemic, some Western donors are using this time as an opportunity to push the ideology of legalized abortion under the cover of humanitarian relief. Obianuju Ekeocha, founder and president of Culture of Life Africa and filmmaker, joins me now. Welcome back. So good to speak with you. Thank you so much for coming on. Explain to our viewers exactly how Western donors are using the COVID-19 pandemic to advance a pro-abortion agenda, and what exactly are they doing?
Right. So obviously, since the pandemic this year, it's been very difficult for people to do anything. Most people are at home. People are working from home. We can't travel. So pro-life activities, like many other things, have slowed down. But unbeknownst to people around the world, the abortion movement has been very active. They've been doing their work. They've been having meetings. They've been having online events. They have also been getting a lot of money from donors. That money that has been flowing to the abortion movement didn't cease. Instead, during this pandemic, Tracy, they have actually had more claims almost to the money, because somehow the international community decided that abortion care, quote unquote care, can also be put into the reproductive health care that they think or they say is very important during the time of the pandemic. So we've seen more activities on the pro-abortion side, but they're also making a lot of bold moves and encroaching into countries where abortion is not even legal.
I know there's a term that you've used in your documentary. You call it humanitarian blackmail. Can you talk a little bit more about that and its specific impact on African nations?
Right. I'm also very glad that I came across this term. It came from a friend of mine, Alisa Corin, who was also featured in the documentary. But humanitarian blackmail really captures this thing that usually happens around the international community, around the United Nations, whereby different countries came together towards the beginning of the pandemic, and they were discussing things on nutrition. And then, of course, they were talking about the COVID pandemic and how to help people, especially in the developing world. But the European countries and some of the other Western countries, big donors, wealthy nations, were trying to push through within this particular conference or meeting a way or an excuse to bring abortion to the top of the list of the things that are important. And of course, by the time there was the rejection of that idea, there was a pushback from the United States. Of course, the Trump administration were pushing back against this particular attempt. The African countries were speaking up, the Caribbeans were speaking up, the people in the Middle East were speaking up. And then at the end of the meeting, nothing came out. There was absolutely no resolution. So instead of the countries to come together, have a consensus, be able to bring out something in order to make life better for people in the developing world, the European countries were ready to block these attempts to make things better just because they didn't get their abortion agenda at that particular conference or at that particular meeting. And so there was no document this year at a time when it's most important. This is blackmail. This is humanitarian blackmail.
We don't have a lot of time left, but I'm wondering if you can maybe quickly tell us or summarize how big of a problem this is.
It is a huge problem. It is a huge problem because millions and millions of dollars have flown into the international abortion movement. And for the fact that the pro-life movement is not really able to act within this period of time, they have made encroachments into African countries like Kenya, Malawi, and even Namibia, where they are trying so hard to get abortion legalized. This is all happening because most people can't really do anything except the abortion movement. They're getting all the funding, they're getting all the attention, and it's such a problem. It is such a problem.
Well, we thank you for coming on and thank you for all that you do. We appreciate it. Obianuju Ekeocha, founder and president of Culture of Life Africa. Thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
Up next, a book by Pope Francis is the basis for a new series on Netflix. And more nativity scenes sent in by you, our viewers. A longtime friend and contributor to EWTN programs has died. Monsignor Richard Salesman was from Illinois and served for many years at the Vatican. He was also vice postulator for the cause of Venerable Fulton Sheen, who died on the same day as Monsignor 41 years earlier. Monsignor Salesman graduated from Marquette University. He was ordained to the priesthood in 1992 and focused on trying to make the faith easy to understand. Monsignor Salesman was 57 years old. Funeral services will be held next week in Illinois. Pope Francis has appointed a new head for the Diocese of Greensburg, Pennsylvania. Monsignor Larry Kulik will now lead the diocese in southwestern Pennsylvania. The 54-year-old has been serving in Greensburg as administrator since September. The Vatican is intervening in the tension between the Catholic Church and authorities in Belarus. Archbishop Claudio Gujarati, former papal representative to Belarus, met with President Alexander Lukashenko to discuss the ongoing tension in the country. The Archbishop of Minsk has been refused entry to the country for several months. Pope Francis participates in the Vatican's annual Advent meditation given by one of the church's newest cardinals.
E in questo senso veramente umile è soltanto Dio.
Cardinal Raniero Cantalamessa says the heart of Christmas is humility, adding that we will not recognize Christ's coming if we are not humble ourselves. He says Christ is found in the poor and suffering of the church, of the world, and in our own lives. And if we make ourselves small in order to raise others up, we will encounter the Lord. A book written by Pope Francis has inspired a series from Netflix, and the Holy Father is slated to take part. The 4-episode series is not yet named, but will include an exclusive interview with the Holy Father. The inspiration comes from his 2018 book dedicated to sharing the wisdom of the elderly. Joining us now with more is EWTN Newsroom correspondent Colm Flynn. Colm, so good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Tell us more about this new Netflix series.
Good evening, Tracy, from Rome. Yes, this new Netflix series that has been announced, it is a documentary series that will tell the story of our oldest generation, but it will be narrated in a very different way, from a different perspective, from the eyes of young people. Now, a number of stories of men and women over the age of 70 and coming from a variety of different countries, religions, ethnicities, and socioeconomic backgrounds. Their stories will be told from young filmmakers under 30 years of age. Their goal is to touch on some of the most common themes in every culture. Themes like love, struggle, work, death, and dreams. And what's unique, Tracy, about this documentary series is that exclusive commentary by Pope Francis will be the common thread across all 4 episodes. In fact, he was the one who inspired this new series in the first place with a book that he wrote in 2018.
Colm, that sounds so very interesting. Tell us a little bit more about the book that inspired it.
Well, Tracy, the book is called Sharing the Wisdom of Time and is made up of interviews with older people from all over the world. And in this book, Pope Francis responds to their testimonies by highlighting the wisdom of the elderly and their insights as fundamental contributions to society. Pope Francis says the elderly are entrusted with the task of transmitting the history of family, of community, and of people. Now, 2 years ago, speaking during the book presentation, Pope Francis called for an alliance between young and old. He said one of the strongest virtues that grandparents have is that they've seen so many things in their lives, and he advised grandparents to have a lot of love and tenderness towards young people in their lives, and to pray for the young people who may have fallen away or left the faith. And he also encouraged young people to spend time with their grandparents and to listen to their experiences as a way to help them navigate situations in their own lives.
I love that. Grandparents are so very important to us. Do we happen to know when the series will be coming out?
Well, Tracy, the series is still in a development process. It still doesn't even have a name. However, there are plans to release it exclusively on Netflix next year. Now, the filmmakers, all under the age of 30, are working under Fernando Marielles, a Brazilian director. So it will be interesting to see how this series comes together, and I'm sure it'll be one not to be missed. Tracy?
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. Thank you so much, Colm Flynn, EWTN Newsroom correspondent. Thank you again.
Thank you, Tracy.
And before we go, more of your nativity scenes, and here they are right here. We're going to start in Philadelphia with this creche from Mike and Susanna Fatorina Spitzer. They also sent along a Merry Christmas message. Thank you for that. That is gorgeous. Elma Espinoza sent a picture of her mother's nativity in her front yard. You can see all that hard work that she put into it. It's in Mendota, California, and it is gorgeous. And we have 2 pictures right here, all the way from Southport, England. Thank you so much, Finn Barguri, for sending these in. I love them. This nativity scene right here comes from the Ocello family. They live in Clinton, New Jersey, and they tell us that this creche was made by a friend as a wedding gift. Isn't that special? What a great idea. And Christine Jackson in Prattville, Alabama shares that each year she chooses a yearly word, and this year's word is joy. She saw this joy nativity scene and she knew it was just the perfect one for Christmas, and that brings us a lot of joy. And send in your creche photos to our EWTN News Nightly Twitter or Facebook pages, or by emailing EWTN News Nightly at EWTN.com, and you could see them featured right here on News Nightly. Thank you to everyone who sent those in, and we thank you for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Tracy Sable. Good night and God bless.